Go outside for a minute. Seriously. Walk over to your car and take a look at your headlights. Not a quick glance. Actually look at them. Because there's a good chance you've been staring at the same headlights for years without really seeing them. Maybe they're crystal clear. Maybe they're not. But if they're starting to look yellow, cloudy, foggy, or faded, what you're looking at isn't just an appearance problem. Most people think it is. They see oxidation on a headlight and immediately assume it's a cosmetic issue, like a scratch or a paint blemish. Something annoying, but not important. The reality is very different. Every year, millions of drivers unknowingly lose a significant amount of nighttime visibility because their headlights slowly deteriorate. The change happens so gradually that they never notice it. One day turns into 1 month. 1 month turns into 1 year. The headlights become a little duller. A little more yellow. A little more cloudy. And because you see your car every day, your brain adapts. You stop noticing the difference. Until one night you're driving down a dark road and wondering why everything seems harder to see. You assume your eyes are getting worse. You assume the road is darker. You assume the weather is bad. Meanwhile, the real problem has been sitting right in front of you the entire time. Your headlights. What's interesting is that the bulbs themselves are often perfectly fine. The electrical system works. The lights turn on. Nothing appears broken. But the plastic lens covering the headlight has been slowly attacked by sunlight, heat, road debris, pollution, rain, and thousands of hours of exposure to the environment. Over time, that clear plastic starts to oxidize. And when it oxidizes, it stops allowing light to pass through efficiently. Think about trying to shine a flashlight through a dirty window. The flashlight still works. The light is still there. But the window blocks and scatters it. That's essentially what's happening every time you drive with severely oxidized headlights. And yet, most people never think about fixing them. Or if they do, they assume it's going to be expensive. That's usually where the frustration starts. Someone notices their headlights look terrible. They take the car to a dealership. The dealership recommends replacement. The estimate comes back a few $100s. Sometimes much more. And suddenly a simple maintenance issue becomes a major expense. But here's the thing. In many cases, the headlight assembly itself doesn't need to be replaced at all. The expensive components inside are often still working exactly as intended. The problem is usually concentrated on the outer surface. That's why restoration is possible. And once you understand what's actually happening, the process becomes much less intimidating. One thing I've always found interesting is the way automotive enthusiasts approach maintenance. Particularly in places where car culture is deeply rooted. People often assume the secret to keeping a vehicle looking great is spending more money. But experienced car owners know something different. The biggest difference usually isn't money. It's knowledge. Knowing what causes a problem. Knowing how to prevent it. And knowing when something needs replacement versus when it simply needs restoration. Headlights are a perfect example. A lot of people see a cloudy lens and immediately think it's ruined. In reality, that yellow layer is often just surface damage. The underlying material can still be restored to impressive clarity. Sometimes with surprisingly simple tools. For light oxidation, many people start with toothpaste. And yes, I know that sounds ridiculous. It sounds like one of those internet hacks that shouldn't work. But there's actually a reason it can help. Most whitening toothpastes contain mild abrasives. Nothing aggressive. Just enough to polish away very small imperfections. When applied carefully with a microfiber cloth, those abrasives can remove a portion of the oxidation sitting on the surface. Will it make severely damaged headlights look brand new? No. Probably not. But for early-stage cloudiness, it can produce a noticeable improvement. And more importantly, it demonstrates something that many people don't realize. The yellow layer isn't always permanent. It can often be removed. Once people see that first improvement, they begin to understand what's really happening. The oxidation isn't part of the headlight. It's sitting on top of it. And if it can be removed, then visibility can be restored. For more heavily damaged headlights, the process requires a little more effort. But the principle stays exactly the same. You're removing damaged material until you reach healthy material underneath. That's really all restoration is. The reason sanding works isn't because sanding is magical. It's because oxidation doesn't usually extend deep into the lens. Most of the damage is concentrated near the surface. So when the damaged layer is carefully removed, the clearer layer underneath becomes visible again. The first time someone sees this happen, it's honestly pretty satisfying. You can take a headlight that looks completely ruined and watch it slowly transform back into something that looks almost new. Not through replacement. Not through expensive parts. Just through understanding the material and treating it correctly. Of course, this is where many people make mistakes. They get impatient. They rush the process. Or they use the wrong materials. One of the biggest mistakes is assuming that more aggressive always means better. Someone grabs the roughest sandpaper they can find because they want faster results. What they actually do is create deeper scratches that become even harder to remove. Another common mistake is treating headlights the same way they treat glass. Headlights aren't glass. Most modern headlights are made from polycarbonate plastic. Plastic behaves differently. It scratches differently. It reacts differently to chemicals. And it requires different maintenance techniques. That's why certain household products can actually make the problem worse instead of better. People often reach for whatever cleaner happens to be under the kitchen sink. If it cleans countertops, surely it can clean a headlight. Not necessarily. Some products remove protective coatings. Some leave residues. Some cause additional surface damage over time. The irony is that people spend more money trying random shortcuts than they would have spent doing the job correctly in the first place. But even when someone restores a headlight perfectly, there's one final step that determines whether the result lasts for months or for years. Protection. This is the part that gets ignored more than anything else. Imagine spending an entire afternoon restoring a weathered wooden deck. You sand it. You clean it. You make it look beautiful again. Then you leave it completely exposed to the elements. What happens? Eventually, it starts deteriorating again. Headlights are no different. The oxidation didn't appear randomly. It was caused by years of environmental exposure. Primarily ultraviolet radiation from the sun. If you remove the oxidation but never replace the protective barrier, the exact same process simply begins again. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not next week. But eventually. That's why professional restorations always include some form of UV protection. The restoration removes the damage. The protection prevents the damage from quickly returning. And that's the difference between a temporary improvement and a long-term solution. What's funny is that many drivers obsess over things that barely affect their driving experience. They'll spend hundreds of dollars on cosmetic accessories, new badges, decorative trim, fancy floor mats. But they'll ignore the one component responsible for helping them see the road at night. When you think about it that way, headlights are actually one of the highest value maintenance items on a vehicle. They're directly connected to safety, directly connected to visibility, directly connected to reaction time. And unlike many automotive upgrades, the benefits are immediately noticeable. The first night after a proper restoration, most people notice the difference right away. Road signs appear brighter. Lane markings become easier to see. Objects further down the road become clearer. the entire driving experience feels more confident. Not because the bulbs changed. Not because the vehicle changed. Because the light is finally able to reach the road again. And maybe that's the bigger lesson here. A lot of things we replace don't actually need replacement. They need attention. They need maintenance. They need understanding. We become so accustomed to throwing things away that we've forgotten how many problems can be solved with a little effort and a little knowledge. Headlights are one of the easiest examples of that. What looks like a dead component is often just a neglected one. What looks like an expensive repair is often a simple restoration. And what looks like a problem that requires a professional can often be handled in your own driveway. So if your headlights are yellow, if they're cloudy, if they're making nighttime driving harder than it should be, don't automatically assume you need to spend hundreds of dollars replacing them. Take a closer look first. Understand what's actually causing the problem. Because there's a very good chance that those headlights aren't worn out. They're just covered by years of oxidation. And once you remove that barrier and protect the surface properly, you might be surprised by how much life is still left in them. The next time you walk out to your car, don't just unlock the door and drive away. Take a second and really look at those headlights. They might be telling you something you've been missing for years. And fixing it could be one of the simplest improvements you ever make to your vehicle.